Welcome to Original Being, where we explore the timeless wisdom of ancient practices and old ways of living, from holistic health and wellness to survival techniques, homesteading, and primitive skills. I'm Jillian Ariz, a functional and holistic-minded physician associate and a homesteading mother of 3. I am on a quest to reconnect with the knowledge our ancestors lived by, practical skills, natural healing, and self-sufficiency in a modern world. Each episode, I'll be sharing insights, experiences, and conversations with experts and everyday people who embody this mindset. Together, we'll challenge modern conveniences, embrace hands-on learning, and rediscover the practices that have stood the test of time. Disclaimer, the information shared on this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. My opinions and those of my guests are solely our own and are not affiliated with any institutions, employers, or certifications. This podcast does not provide medical advice, and any health-related decisions should be made in consultation with your personal healthcare provider. By listening, you acknowledge that you take full responsibility for your own choices and actions.
Today on Original Being, we have Samantha Boersma. Samantha is a visionary, intuitive, and creatress, moved by the magic available to us in every moment. She speaks the language of the flowers, acting as a bridge from spirit to physical, to remind you how connected, supported, and nourished you really are. Her work intends to inspire a sense of belonging with all things and awaken you to the remembrance that all the wisdom you seek lives within you. The work she does through the spiral path has been informed by the divine feminine teachings, embodying receptivity, deep listening, and the access we all have to the ancient well of intuitive wisdom within. She works with the principles of Ayurveda, yoga, and Tantra in collaboration with plant spirits to restore balance in the aura and encourage the mind, body, and spirit towards integrated healing. Hi, Samantha.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
That is a beautiful bio.
Thank you.
So I don't know if that bio totally says it, but Samantha does a lot with flower essences. And I would love to know how you got into this and how you learned about this.
It's, that big question that I never seem to learn to answer concisely because it feels like it was such a long spiralic journey to get here. But I guess the short of it is I struggled with a lot of health issues, a lot of autoimmune issues, a lot of chronic illness ever since I was young. And I was actually that person who always knew what I wanted to do, and that was be in the fashion industry.
Wow. You're the second person actually I've had on that originally wanted to be in the fashion industry.
I'm starting to learn now. I'm starting to see the through lines more now that both things are really strongly about expression and the freedom to express who we truly are. But I was on a journey to be a part of the fashion industry, and I was simultaneously navigating that chronic illness and just the intensity of living a life in pain and not feeling your best. And I began this healing journey, and I started going deeper and deeper into myself. And there was kind of like this convergence point where I realized, like, is this really what I want to do with my life? Am I making the impact I want to be making? Like, I'm a person who craves a lot of depth in things. And I went kind of into the fashion industry as this naive young gal who just loved the artistry and the expression and I think the art form that fashion was. And when I graduated from schooling and was out in the industry, I really started to crave something deeper within my career and also within myself. And this was right at a similar time to when I was feeling really unheard by doctors in Western medicine, was really not getting the care I deserved or the answers I was seeking. And so, I was put on this prescription that they said you'll have to take for the rest of your life to navigate what you're going through. And I just refused to accept that. And so I dove in really deep to healing myself and went really strongly on a healing journey. And that expanded beyond my just physical body into my being and my spiritual body. And so I went deeper and deeper and really just started following the calls of my soul. I moved to the mountains, left my whole life in the city behind, and a lot started opening up with plant spirit communication. And I just continued to follow it. And when I finally moved to where I live now, which is the Blue Ridge Mountains in Western North Carolina, there was just this strong expansion of input from the plants. And I started knowing things about their properties that I had no business knowing. And they really just started communicating and speaking with me, and I started following their direction. I saw a lot of changes in myself through that work that were so powerful and unexplainable. And I felt like I was finally in a place where the people around me were speaking the language that I'd been speaking my whole life. And I was understanding why I'd always felt so misunderstood, because I spoke in this more subtle, intuitive, feeling sense, abstract way. And so I just kind of knew I was at home.
Yeah.
I just kind of knew I was home. And so I continued following that, and it led me here to having my own business and helping people heal through this connection.
And so did someone like teach you how to do the plant spirit communication? Did you just figure it out on your own, or were you just kind of like meditating with a plant and then these things were coming to you?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of guidance from many different teachers. I worked with a company called Earth Speak, which was so fun for some time. So I had a lot of access to courses through them. And, I've been working for an apprenticing with Deborah Hannekamp for the past 5 years. And she works with plant spirit communication as well. And a bunch of other healers along the way have given me bits and pieces, and I've kind of braided them together into my own unique modality that just kind of flows with my original gifts.
And I love that. I don't know if this is the name of a specific thing or if you just put this on your Instagram, but it's like sensitive medicine for sensitive people. And that really speaks to me when you're talking about how you are like a more empathic, deeply feeling person, that some of these more like abrasive or aggressive forms of quote unquote medical care really didn't work for you. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more, what that means to you?
Yeah, I think it's a really big part of the story. I'm struggling to fit it all in a concise way, but it's a huge part of the story. Growing up in, our school system here in America, really having to use kind of that logical mind, that masculine energy to get by in the world. And I did a really good job of like faking it till I made it. Like I'm able to speak that language. There were so many ways that I felt shut down by the world because they didn't understand kind of my more like free-flowing, empathetic, sensitive type of medicine. And I remember looking back on one of my college like SWOT analysis. We had to do a SWOT analysis of ourselves. And for my weaknesses, I put that I was too sensitive and that I was like too empathetic and all of this. And that's been a huge part of the journey. And I think that's why I was so drawn to divine feminine medicine, is because it invites us back in to reclaim that as a gift and stop trying to fit ourselves into this world that tells us something's wrong with us, and instead embrace these things that actually make us, they're our superpowers, they give us so much more awareness of the world. And so I think a big part of my mission has become helping other people who are sensitive understand how to work with that sensitivity. And flower essences are an incredible way to do that because they are such a sensitive medicine. They really work in the subtle realms. And if you're a sensitive person, whether you realize it or not, you probably speak the language of the subtle. You probably feel like the emotional charge of a situation or the energetic change in a person's demeanor, and that's where flower essences live and create change. This is really who this medicine is for. Those of us who felt out of place in the world and are really looking for the spaces that speak our language. And I love to say it's such a defiant medicine because this is really what our culture needs for balance, right? Is to bring in more of this compassion, this empathy, this sensitivity to how we're affecting our ecosystem, other people, all of this. And flower essences are defiant because they require us to go slow, to take a little bit, to not expect instantaneous change. And this is all against what we've been programmed to expect, but it's so, so needed.
Yeah. And it's so different than like I've talked about this a little bit where even with herbalism, sometimes people want the same thing like that they would get from a pharmaceutical. Like they're trying to just treat a symptom with an herb, get that fast result. And that's a much more slow and, different kind of medicine too. But flower essences are even more subtle. Like you were saying, like it's even more gentle and spiritual um and yeah, you're not going to get that same kind of an effect, and you have to just really believe that there's something happening on a deeper level with this plant and with this essence. Um, and I do want to touch a little bit on you talking about the people in society, because I found that there are some people who are deeply feeling, deeply sensitive, who are kind of stuck in high powered jobs or like certain career paths or in a city or certain things that just are so not conducive with their being and their personality and them as a person, and they're so unhappy. And I look and I could see that person and say, oh, that person was meant to be out like in the forest. That person was not meant to be living in this particular life. And it's very sad that society tells us that those are not traits that are desirable, that we need these people absolutely. And so I love that you like found that, we're able to embrace that, we're able to realize that this is a different way of life that you're meant to live, and it's not this path.
And it takes so much courage. I have so
Yeah.
much compassion for that person who's stuck in that position and feels like there's nothing they can do about it, because everything in our cultural messaging is telling us to prioritize, you know, having the high paying job and
Hmm.
all of these, whatever it is for you, but like all of these different things. And it takes so much courage to walk away and say, you know what, I'm going to venture into the unknown and see what happens.
Yeah. Or thinking maybe like, I don't like to be around people, or I don't like people. I've heard that a lot too, or feel it. And really it's, oh no, it's because you're feeling all the people, like you're feeling all their energies, and that's what you're feeling. And that's why it's overwhelming.
Yeah. And that's a big thing that I try to like braid into everything that I do, is like offering these tools so that those who are really in proximity to a lot of people and a lot of other people's energy
Hmm.
feel more well resourced to navigate the world. Because it doesn't have to be so hard. And I
Yeah.
know, like, for sensitive people, it can feel like, oh, this is just how I am. And like, I'm powerless to this and I'm just always going to be drained. But
Hmm.
there are so many amazing tools to support us when we are like, it doesn't mean that you have to throw away your life and move to the mountains, like
Right.
there are tools that can, and it might for some people, but there are tools that can support you if like the city life is for you, but you're very sensitive. So, and flower essences are one of them. I mean, so many of the plants really help us like strengthen and fortify our energy field so that we're not so permeable. And it's not like blocking other people out, but we're really meant to be in our own energy. It's like it's the perfect frequency for us. We're not meant to be taking on all of these other people's energies. So plants can really help us not only like differentiate the energy, because sometimes it can be hard to know what's us and what's not us,
Yeah.
but also really fortify our field so that kind of our own vital life force is continually feeding us. We're
Yeah.
receiving energy from ourselves naturally.
So do you want to tell people about what a flower essence is and how you make it? Because I think that I often assume everyone listening always knows these things. I know they don't.
No, and it's like most people don't know what a flower essence
Yeah.
is, which is such a cool realm to be in, because I'm like, I don't want to assume, but I also want to
Yeah.
help share. So a flower essence is a vibrational medicine. Plants are our oldest and wisest ancestors. They carry a ton of spiritual wisdom, and they love to help us grow, change, evolve on our spiritual journey. And flower essences are made with the flower of a plant. The flower is like the highest expression of the plant. It's like its light body. So it works on our light body or our aura or our subtle field. In that place is where like spiritual or emotional concerns kind of reside. So flower essences are taken like a tincture on a very subtle level, 3 to 5 drops up to 3 times a day is what I say. You'll
Mhm.
find variations in that. But the point is that you take actually quite a little amount, and they're taken consistently to work on things like building our confidence or overcoming grief or healing the heart, or healing from shock or trauma, things like this, or healing the mother wound, all of these spiritual, emotional concerns that oftentimes feel challenging to overcome with things like talk therapy or coaching or things like that. Like flower essences are really incredible for things that you feel like you can't logical mind your way out of,
Yeah.
And the flower essences help you take another entrance into the unconscious or the energy field or the subtle body to create healing that exists beyond the logical mind.
Hmm.
Like you do a meditation or like a visualization or a healing journey because it brings you into that place beyond the logical mind. You're in a different brain state and it's easier to create healing. Flower essences are the same way.
And so you take the flower and place it in water in a crystal bowl, usually, correct?
Yes. Sorry, I forgot to answer that part of the question.
That's okay. And so we are saying that the water is taking on the structure of the flower, or what's passed on into the water from the flower.
So back to the flower is the expression of the plant, right? It's the light body. It's the highest form of expression that we have. So basically what we're doing is like encapsulating the flower's aura into the water. The idea is water holds memory. And there are tons of studies done on this in this day and age that you can look into. Veda Austin, shout out to Veda Austin. She's incredible. Like if you want to look at the intelligence of water.
Write that down.
Yeah, I recommend. She's amazing. And so the water memorizes the frequency of the flower. That's then preserved and diluted before we take it. But then when we ingest that, we're ingesting that frequency. And plants are so wise and intelligent. And that frequency naturally shifts our own frequency in very subtle increments. So we're taking 3 to 5 drops 3 times a day for 28 days. And that by ingesting that frequency of the flower, we're changing our aura a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more every day until there's resolution in whatever spiritual concern we're seeking to shift.
So that's the normal recommendation, like one specific or maybe more than one, but the specific flower essence is taken for 28 days.
This is how I create my blends. There's a huge kind of spectrum of advice out there. And also your intuition is so important in this. If you take a flower essence for 28 days and then that issue still feels present, then you should continue on that protocol. And the longer we spend with plants, like getting to know them, because really you have to think about this as developing a relationship. The longer we spend, the more wisdom we're going to unlock and the more change we're going to help shift in our energy field. So 28 days is what I formulate in one bottle. And that can be good a lot of times, but it can really vary. I always say, like, think of a human to human relationship. The first time I'm meeting you, I'm going to tell you some very curated surface level things that I want you to know. But then as we know each other for a year, you unlock so much more of my backstory or the wisdom I have to share or whatever it is. And I always tell people, when you're ingesting a flower essence, approach it as I'm creating a relationship with this one plant or the plants in this blend. And I'm creating this intentionality in my day every day to open myself up, to listen, to receive what it is they have to offer. And that you could work with one flower for your whole entire lifetime and learn so much and change so much. And honestly, probably like heal most of the things you're trying to heal with just one flower because you're developing that deepened relationship.
Wow. I love that so much. And I love the idea of the flower essence is just a way to get to know that plant better too, like another, because there's all different ways of like, you can journey with them and you can sit with them and you can ingest them. To also say, well, now let's take that flower essence as like this other part of just really getting to know this plant is really neat too.
That's another big thing I love to kind of promote within my work because, the whole premise is that there are already plant allies around you waiting to help you heal, And this is what I do in my flower readings. I help just show people that there are these allies around you waiting to help you heal. Here are some of the messages that I'm receiving, but like, this is something that you can develop equally as well as I could. It's just time and listening and attention. Like, I don't have any special gift that someone else doesn't have.
And in the beginning, when you were saying how you started sitting with plants and were getting information that you didn't even have any knowledge of, that's a real thing. Like, for people listening, I know that might sound really woo-woo, but when I was in herb school, that was one of the things they had us do. Was there was a specific plant that they had us go sit with that we had to not know it. Like, you had to make sure, like, you didn't know what it was. You had no identification. So you had no understanding of the plant and what it did, and like sit with it for a while and like meditate and like see what came to you. And so we did that, and everything that came to me then after you go back and like read about it and find out what it is was 100% accurate. And every time I do that, I'm blown away because it seems so mystical and so wild and crazy in one way, but then when you think about ancient cultures, like, they had to have also done this, like, that has to be how we got a lot of information about plants, is truly sitting and listening and saying, what do you bring to the table? How do we work together? What is this plant's offering? And the plant will tell you, I can actually, clear blockages in your lungs, or like, they just tell you these things, and it's incredible.
Yeah, this is like a huge piece of what I'm really passionate about talking about too. Like, my philosophy is that our grandmothers and our grandmothers' grandmothers carried this wisdom in their blood and bones for generations. And our culture is overly reliant on the written word. And this is another way I think we can create balance and flower essences are an extremely safe way to do it, is by returning back to just listening to a plant. Like, could you possibly resist the urge to go into all the herb books, read, box description of a flower essence? Could you possibly resist the urge to do any research and just sit with the plant? Because there's so much wisdom there. And I really think that, like, the plant spirits, just like us, the plant spirits are continually evolving. And I think they're wise beyond our years because they've been here for so long. But I think we're also evolving. And so the information that's able to be communicated is also evolving. And so I think there's something really magical about honoring the written word, but also setting it aside and giving the opportunity for plants to receive or reveal new information and insights to us that maybe isn't written down anywhere,
Well, because everything that's written down is from the human perspective.
Totally. But we're so reliant on that written word that like we forget that sometimes,
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I find that a lot of people too, myself included, that you might get information if you're really quieting yourself down and letting that come to you, and then you start to just second guess it or not trust it.
Oh, yeah.
Say, oh, my brain just created that. Oh, I'm just making that up, but that's not real. That's something that we do a lot.
It's such a huge part. And so, back to the trainings that I did trainings with this woman, Emily Hamilton, who was amazing. And that was a lot of what we did, was meditating with the plants for like 3 hours every week, and then sharing in our live calls, like, what we received. And what I loved about working with her is she would never validate or invalidate anything. She would just like, and then you would just hear everyone's, and the through lines were incredible. But then if you went and did the research after, you'd be like, wow, other humans have written this down too, like you were saying earlier. And it's so real. I know it doesn't seem like it.
I know, I agree. Coming from like a science background, it's like, that's kind of what I love too, though. I love stuff that science can't explain. And I love science too. I love things that we figured out. But the more you know as a human, the more you realize you don't know. And you just kind of keep being like, wow, this is fascinating. And there's so much out there that has yet to be explored.
Yeah. I mean, huge fan of science as well. And also, I think the human mind can just limit us so much. I think, especially in the scientific community. I'm so sorry. I know this is like kind of controversial, but there can be a lot of like rigidity and like, no, it can't be any other way. Like, and this is how we get stuck in prisons in our own minds, and the essence of my work is really, it always comes back to liberation. Like, how can I free my own mind and help other people free their own minds more and more and more, because I think that's the space where these new discoveries and these new insights really come from, you know? Like
Mm-hmm.
all inventors were seen as crazy at one point, and
Yeah.
um I
Yeah.
feel like to be
Yeah, even amazing scientists and medical thinkers throughout history, every time there was like a new idea, it was like, nothing new ever.
and to be like a true cutting edge scientist, you have to probably have your time when when you're perceived as crazy. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's just like such medicine for our moment, like balance for where we're at in society.
I want to talk more about frequencies. So I'm actually still trying to wrap my head around this too, even though I understand what a flower essence is. So we're talking about like the spirit of the plant too. And I know there is a lot of science and research around water. So if we're getting back to science, yes, if you want some, legitimacy to your scientific brain, there's a lot of really amazing research about water and water structure and water holding memory and things. So if the water is kind of being imprinted with this flower, but what's the frequency? Frequency is like a vibration, right? So what's happening with the frequency?
I mean, it's the same thing as the sensitive person being in the crowded space and picking up on everyone else's energy, and it's affecting them, right? Our aura contains the medicine that we have for the world, and that is the frequency that we're emitting from our heart space. It's really the electromagnetic frequency of our heart. And so I think it's the same thing with the flower, right? It's really just their aura, their frequency. It contains that information that then can be, emitted through that imprint on the water. Does that make sense?
Kind of. It's hard to like process it. Like I love it so much and I want to be like, yes, but I've always had a hard time like fully understanding. But also I always wonder, so we take that water and then we usually like brandy or something's added to it just to like make sure it doesn't, get moldy or go bad or whatever over time. And then you were saying it's also diluted. So like how much is left at that point when you get to that end process?
Yeah, so that's one of the most wild parts. And this is where there's a lot of similarity to homeopathy.
Yeah.
So the concept of homeopathy is that it's often toxic plants that it's like cures like you bring in the toxic plant to aid the issue that you're having, but it's diluted down so many times that there's no plant matter in the final product.
We just talked about this recently a couple episodes ago. I didn't actually understand that there wasn't any. I thought there was just like a super, super tiny amount. But she was saying it's also just like an imprint of the plant too, basically at the end of point.
So it's the same philosophy. And so flower essences, I mean, it's pretty wild. So the mother essence is half water, half preservative.
Mm-hmm.
But then to make an actual essence that you would ingest, you have half just regular spring water, half preservative, and like 8 drops of the mother essence.
Mm.
So it's pretty diluted.
Mm-hmm.
It's diluted down, down, down. But the idea, and I don't know that I can really explain this either because it is really contrary to like the logical mind. But the idea is that actually the more diluted it is, the more powerful it is.
That's interesting. Have you ever tried the mother essence and then felt like, okay, what the difference was?
I haven't taken a mother essence directly, but I have overdone flower essences and really felt a lot of intensity.
Okay.
It really is such a challenge to our ego, I think, to go slow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. This is the concept that the more diluted it is, the more powerful it is. I don't know that I can really explain that from like a logical mind perspective because it doesn't make sense to me either. But I've experienced the effects of that,
Yeah.
And I think it's something that you kind of just have to experience for yourself. And I always like to say too, to anyone who feels like, I don't know if I believe that. That seems kind of crazy. Okay. Totally cool. I get that. And I am such a skeptic myself, But also, even if the flower essence isn't technically doing anything, like let's just say that, right? The thing is that you have already gone through the process of saying, I'm feeling grief. I think I need something to support my grief. You've bought a flower essence. Now you've made a ritual in your day, every day, 3 times a day, to intentionally acknowledge your grief. And you've probably reflected about your grief beforehand. And then when you're finished, you're going to reflect about how has my grief changed since I started taking this? So even if the flower essence is not actually physically affecting you in any way, you are directing your intention towards healing and creating a ritual towards healing. And that in itself, I think, is extremely powerful.
Yeah. I was thinking of something like that earlier where more along, again, connecting with the plant, even if you don't believe that the imprint is in the water, if you're like intentionally connecting with that plant every time you're taking that essence, that's a whole other thing. You're almost like calling in the spirit of that plant every single time.
Exactly. And like a lot of the work that I do in the one-on-one readings, it's plant spirit communication. And so really that's what it is. It's like intentionally calling in the plant spirit and opening up to the wisdom it has to offer. And so that exactly right. Like that's then what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's nice. It's really a beautiful practice. So I noticed you also use the crystal bowls. What is that doing when you add that into the process?
So I think these are the bowls that I've been using lately are bowls that have been created by someone I love, Stacy of Kindling by Stacy. And I think because flower essences are such a subtle, sensitive medicine, there's so much intentionality that goes into every part of the process. Because if you're thinking about this, like the water is taking the imprint of the flower. The water then has the ability to take the imprint of all the energetics of the situation, right? So if you've accepted that about the water, then the water is very sensitive. The water is also taking on my energy because I too have an aura that's engaging in this process. So then if a crystal bowl is a living thing made of quartz crystals, it's taking on that energy as well. And so for me, that is a tool to just amplify the energetics of the flower, of the creation of the flower, of whatever moon and stars we're engaging with at that time, of the space that I'm creating in. All of these things really matter to the medicine making process. And so the crystal bowl is kind of amplifying all of that and just it's really holding like a pure space for that creation to occur. I don't know if you work with crystals at all, but quartz has just a very like clearing, clarifying, amplifying, just neutralizing, beautiful energy.
Yeah.
So that's why I love it for essence making.
And when you do the singing of the crystal bowl, do you think that makes the flower essence more powerful or pulls something more out of it because it's also like vibrating the water so intensely?
Yeah. So if you go even deeper into the studies of like the intelligence of water and the structure of water and all of this, really strongly affects the structure of the water. And so we're like activating and amplifying the living properties of the water, and that healing energy of the sound is then infused in the essence as well. So
Yeah, it's really
so
cool.
much intentionality in the medicine making process. And it's really about like just adding support to the plant's wisdom in any way that we can and just kind of creating like a clean blank slate for what we're putting into the water, if that makes sense.
And I would imagine the quality of the water really matters for this too. Do you like get like fresh spring water? I know you said spring water, but like if someone just wants to make their own flower essences, where would they source really high quality water?
Yeah, so the ideal is water. I am lucky enough to just live in the mountains and my water is spring water. So I'm so grateful for that. And just, as we're talking about the medicine making process and how important every aspect of it is, it feels important to name the land that I live on and this place that I call Fairy Mountain that's built atop like all of these quartz crystals and mica and is just so abundant with butterflies and just beautiful growing allies all around. But I, if possible, would recommend getting water directly from a spring.
Yeah.
If not possible, really your intention is the most important thing. So if you need to get a different type of water, if you imbue the water with your love and your belief and your grace, like all of these things help change the structure of the water in a positive way.
Yeah.
And again, like, please look into Veda Austin's work. It's so incredible.
Yeah, I'm excited to look it up. But that's true. I mean, they've done studies just on people talking to plants, singing to plants. They grow better, they're healthier, all those kinds of things too. So it makes total sense that would happen. That's really neat. I love also, so I would say if you're not making your own flower essences and you're purchasing them from someone, then the person you're purchasing from, it would be very important, because you were saying how your aura and all of your intentions and things that are going on in your life are also, going into that.
Yeah. So I really recommend a lot of discernment when, and not that anyone creating a flower essence is like bad, but just that they're in resonance with you. That it feels like a good match for you. Because if someone just feels like out of resonance with you and then you're kind of ingesting their energy, that could be less than beneficial,
Yeah.
If they're like just crazily mass produced and there's not really probably any person left in the medicine making process, then there's kind of a question there on how effective they're going to be.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so you'd mentioned something about like the moon. Do you try to like do things with certain phases of the moon as well?
Yeah. And sometimes it'll just be like the medicine lets me know when's the time. But, there are more potent times to make medicine for certain intentions, like, a new moon for a medicine that's going to help clear and then call new things in, or a full moon for a medicine that's about connection and celebration and ceremony, or things like this. So you can just, it's similar to like biodynamic farming,
Right.
you can just use these things to amplify what you're already creating. Again, this is just like additional. I think it really goes back to like your intention is what matters most. So it doesn't have to be the case that it's the perfect stars when you want to make this flower essence, but it can just be an added benefit, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So what if you have somebody who is very like they want to try it, but they're also really like blocking themselves to the process? And I guess what I'm trying to say is like, what if you have someone who's taking it and they're just like, I don't feel anything, it's not doing anything, like that kind of like an attitude. How do you approach that? Or does that person ever come around and realize that like they need this more subtle medicine and like take the time to actually feel it? I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking about people I know or things that I would feel like they would be like, I don't feel anything, that kind of an attitude.
I think that's fine. And I personally don't think I don't feel the need to like convert someone. Like, that's fine. Cool. Like, do what works for you, That's cool.
Mhm.
But I would say like maybe just give it a shot and maybe just ask yourself if you've really reflected before and after. I think a huge part of subtle shifts is being able to have the attuned awareness to notice the change, because it really can be so subtle that it can be difficult to realize that it's not just you. Like,
Yeah.
beauty of flower essences is it just feels like the petals of a flower unfolding. Like, it's hardly perceptible until it's complete, So I think it's really valuable to note down how you're feeling before you start taking it, and then look back at that and note down how you're feeling afterwards and just kind of compare notes. Every medicine isn't for everyone, and that's totally cool. Like, if you don't feel anything, no big deal. Like, I've done tons of meditations and transformative healing journeys where I didn't feel anything, and that's
Mhm.
okay. And personally, I'm obviously very woo-woo, so I trust that what needed to happen probably did. But if that's not your thing, then no worries, you know? But I really think the reflection process is a huge, huge part of it, because it can be hard to remember. It's like when you're growing up with like an animal, you're watching them grow up, or a child, and you see them every day. It's hard to realize how far they've grown unless you like
Yeah,
look back at pictures. And then
absolutely.
with yourself, it's even harder because you're kind of in your own bubble, So really taking that time to reflect, I think, is key.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And like changes, like you said, might have happened whether the person acknowledges it or not.
Yeah, and it's no big deal if it's not your vibe. I think for me, what's really beautiful about it is that it reminds us that we have support around us from the plants. And even if that just opens like someone's eyes a little bit more to the wonder and magic available to us in every moment, then I feel like it's done its job, you know?
Definitely.
Like, even if it just like opens your mind a little tiny bit and you consider it, like, I'm stoked.
So something I'm super interested in, because I think everybody loves personalized stuff. I know I do. I don't know. I assume everyone loves it, but something that's like really personalized, it feels like it's really special. It's just for you. So you do individual readings, two different kinds of individual readings. I want to hear about that. Like, do you see someone and you look at them and you're just like right away, like a flower might come to you? Or I'm sure there's like a, a more, like you said, like a more superficial level and then a deeper level. But let's talk about those individual readings.
Yeah, so it's so fun, actually. So I do flower readings, and then I also have an essence consultation. The essence consultation is just a little bit shorter, and I don't do energy healing in it. But what we do together is you come in, we kind of ground into the space, and you tell me like what's coming up in your life. And then we do a grounding and clearing practice. I do energy healing with the plants, and I then share which flowers come through and what messages they have. And then I create a flower essence for you. But they come through in many ways. So sometimes when I'm preparing myself and sitting and calling myself and the person into the session before I even meet with them, sometimes flowers do come through. A lot of times when I'm one-on-one with the person, they're telling me what's coming through or what's coming up in their life, what's present. I'll have a lot of flowers that come through in my logical mind, but very often when we go into the meditation and the energy healing, completely different plants will come through that I would have never expected. It's so fun. It's like I'm humbled every time. Because my logical mind can, I've been doing this for a little while. I know the properties. My logical mind can draw the connections, but when I look into someone's energy and really sit with the energetics coming up around what they're moving through and their personal like guidance system, it'll be something I never expected, which is so fun. And they'll bring through messages that I've never had come through for that plant before, but it's for that specific person, So
That's super
there's
cool.
variation.
Yeah, I love that. And so are you often giving them a blend more so than a single plant? Yeah.
Yeah. I would say it's like 2 to 5 plants tend to come through. It's usually that kind of sweet spot, and it differs on the person for sure. Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much activity. Like the plants are so excited that you're here. This huge blend, but I try and keep my blends pretty simple and minimal because I find, like going back to that relationship piece, I find it much more clear to build relationships when there's not a ton of plants kind of speaking in the blend, But someone this has only happened to me a couple times, but sometimes they'll show me like 2 paths for the person.
Oh,
They're like,
interesting.
this way or they can go this way. And here's this blend and here's this blend. But you need to get clear with them. Like, do they want to kind of dive into the darkness and the shadow work and the healing, or do they need maybe more of a light path? And sometimes I'll just connect with the person and ask them what they want. And sometimes I'll use my intuition to feel into like, they've really been in the depths of it for a long time. Like, let's maybe make this a little more easeful and light. And this is a medicine that I find a lot of plants really carry. Working with fairies tends to come with working with plants. And fairy medicine is a lot about like bringing the joyfulness, the playfulness to life and even to the hard work. And so a lot of times it's really about like making things a little bit easier.
Yeah. So do you use your intuition to decide that path for them? Or do you ask the person like, well, I'm getting these 2 options. Like, what are you feeling like you're ready for?
It can go both ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like sometimes I'm like, this is what I would recommend. Like I'm just noticing that, you've been kind of striving on this path for a while and like maybe you're being called towards a little bit more ease, but obviously I honor the person in that decision, but I'll like make a suggestion. And because that is actually something as humans that we have such a hard time choosing for ourselves, I think, and remembering is that it doesn't have to be so hard.
Yeah.
Like we have a tendency to like punish ourselves or we can be, especially I find people in the healing world, like you start on this journey because you want to, like a lot of times it starts with self-improvement, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of times it starts like kind of surface level, like self-improvement. And I find that it's really easy to get like sucked into this narrative that there's always something more wrong with you to fix.
Mm-hmm.
And really healing is about helping us. And a lot of times our intention coming into it is helping to experience the beauty and the joy and the pleasure of life. But we like lose that plot along the way because we get so caught up in fixing ourselves. And so a lot of times, like what creates balance is remembering that it doesn't have to be so hard.
Yeah. Or like giving yourself permission to enjoy that, to like enjoy the beauty of life and take a pause. That's hard. That's hard for me, like it's
I
hard
know.
for me to say like you have permission to like not be go every second and like do
It's
all
so
these
hard
things.
for us. Yeah. There's so many flowers that can help with that. And I feel like, yeah, that is oftentimes what we're seeking, right? Like
Hmm.
to actually be able to enjoy the enjoyable
Yeah.
times.
I think you just speak so beautifully to specific plants too. And I'd love to have you kind of maybe like, it doesn't matter how many it is, it's kind of up to you. But like, if there's certain plants that just are coming through for whatever reason, and then like tell me what's coming up for you and what they're saying. It doesn't even have to be like a context. I just what you're feeling into.
Okay, I'll share what has felt present for me and the collective lately in terms of plants that have been coming through. So, one that has been really making itself known this year is Angelica.
Mm,
And this plant is so beautiful for not only, its namesake, like bringing us closer to our angels, bringing a sense of peace, grace, joy, ease into our lives, but especially when we find ourselves in having a really hard time with like earthly concerns, which I feel like is a moment in the collective right now. Like I feel like we're all kind of like, ooh, this feels really dense, this feels really dark, this feels really heavy.
mm,
And I feel like Angelica has been coming in lately to help create this sense of balance and remind us that, I mean, it really goes back to what we were just talking about, honestly. It's like remind us that there can still be beauty, there can still be pleasure, there can still be play. And just because there's so much suffering doesn't mean that you need to be suffering in every moment.
yeah.
And actually, like, what helps lift that up and bring balance to that is engaging with the joy and the beauty and the wonder. And you're not doing something wrong when you're doing that, you know?
That is such a good point. Like when you look at all the suffering in the world right now and how everyone's like, especially if you're an empath, and then feeling like, oh, well, I don't have a right to have joy or have pleasure when like so many people are hurting in the world. It's so hard to allow yourself to feel okay with that. So that's a beautiful like insight that no, we need you to bring that into this. Like you're allowed to feel joy. Please do.
I think it's like such a narrative that we can get so sucked into. And there's like, it's actually, yeah, it can really like bring us down. And if we go back to frequency, like it's actually really important to, and I know this is gonna like, I hate to say this because it can be really triggering, I think, but it's actually important to hold that frequency if you can. And it's not by any means to bypass what's happening in the world.
Right.
Get out there, take action, do what you can. But, you know, the more we can liberate ourselves from these systems that are weighing on us so heavily, the more we can come up. I mean, this like really ties everything that we've talked about together. The more we can come up with these innovative solutions for real change and not just repeat cycles. It's time to break the cycles, break out of what's keeping us stuck. And unfortunately, it really takes cultivating that kind of higher frequency to be able to do that. I hate speaking about it like that because I know it's going to be triggering to say in that way, and I do not mean it in a bypassing way, but I just mean it gives us a higher perspective to create something that hasn't been created before.
Yeah. Well, I think about this all the time. I mean, we've all experienced this where you get kind of stuck in like a negative mindset or maybe things aren't going right for you in your life. And then it just starts to compound, like more bad stuff. It's almost like you're manifesting negative energy, negative things in your life without even meaning to, because you're just kind of stuck in that negative mindset. So like if you're doing what you're saying too, and you're able to keep bringing that joyful energy, keep bringing that, even if there are horrible things happening around you, it's going to keep spreading. The next person's going to feel it. The next person's going to feel it. It's going to keep amplifying. So yeah, we're not bypassing anything. You're helping bring more good into the world, even if you can acknowledge what's happening that is sad and hard and awful, and still put this positive energy out into the world. You're still doing good. You're doing something.
Yeah, it really does make an impact. I know. It's it's hard to talk about in a way that doesn't feel entrenched in just languaging that's been kind of, I don't know. Anyways, moving on. Another plant and really on the same vein too, another plant that's been coming through for me lately and for the collective is borage. Borage is really beautiful for the really heavy, dense blue times, especially when we're stuck in those loops of depression or hopelessness or despair. Do you know the flower borage?
I have so much of it here.
Cool. So it looks like a
because
star,
once you grow it, it never leaves.
right? It's so abundant and it's so luminous. When you look at it, you feel the frequency so strongly. It's so luminous.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like a star, right? And
yeah, it's beautiful. And I love how the flowers change colors.
It's so magical. I love it so much.
Yeah.
It brings this star energy, almost this North Star energy, to help guide us back to the truth of our being, guide us back to love, optimism, hope. You see the North Star in the sky on a dark night as a traveler back in the day who didn't have light or anything to help guide your way, and you have hope that you will find your way. And I feel like borage is bringing through this hope for humanity as well, that we're gonna find our way, that we don't, and it helps us overcome those sticky mental traps that we get stuck in, that we were just kind of talking about too.
Mm-hmm.
And then one more plant for you that has been coming through a lot for months, is maybe years now, is calendula. And calendula is helping us right our relationship with giving and receiving. I find this to be especially powerful for women because I think so many women have a really hard time with receiving.
Yeah.
And it's rooted in our sense of worth, right? And worthiness within ourselves. I think there's collective healing going on around just our innate worthiness, our innate purity. And I know, again, kind of a triggering word, at least it is for me, or has been in the past. But by that, I mean our innate goodness. We are made of the same things of these flowers that we find so beautiful and that help us heal. There's nothing wrong with us to be fixed, going back to this. And it's also really been giving a lot of information around building a new economy and a new sense of trading value or exchanging value. I think we're going to be seeing in the coming years a lot of shifting in this space of currency. And I feel like calendula is a really strong guide in how this unfolds.
Wow, that's super interesting. Because from an herbalist perspective, and of course, I haven't worked with calendula energetically, but I'm just always thinking soothing, healing skin, kind of stuff like that. I'm never thinking of it on another level. So that's just a really cool insight.
And it is so soothing in the energy as well. Very soothing for the hearts, very just soothing for the entire energy field, very brightening, just so happy and so abundant.
Yeah, so happy.
And I feel like it's really helping us. It's helping bring us back to these systems of exchange that feel really abundant, that feel like they reflect the earth's abundance and the earth's sense of providing for us.
That's really interesting. I was thinking a little bit about that too with I guess I don't want to just say money because money is of course only one form of abundance, but do people ever work with flower essences for stuff like that, for wealth, for bringing abundance in or things like that, more a specific intention, this is what I need to bring into my life right now?
Absolutely. So I have a blend called Prosperity Codes.
Oh yeah.
And it's calendula, apple blossom, and lunaria. And that is the yes, that's the surface level intention. And then the secret, deeper intention is to release the programming within us that stands in our way. And I don't want to, again, another kind of triggering conversation to be money's just energy and there's something wrong with you that you can't attract it,
Mm-hmm.
But there's always some semblance of truth at the core of these things, I think. And I think a part of it is like deconstructing the scarcity programming within ourselves that comes from our society and the way that it's set up, and just these kind of thought patterns that we've taken on that it has to look a certain way and be a certain way to get us to a certain place or whatever it is, you know?
Right. Just those money mindsets. And sometimes they're like subconscious.
Yeah. And I think with flower essences, absolutely they can be used for intentions like this. What they're always doing is actually deeper, and it's really always taking off all of the stories, projections, judgments, programmings, identity constructs that we've placed on ourselves by being in the world. This happens to all of us, removing those so we can get back to like the very core of ourselves, you know, the love at the center of our hearts, to be real, you know, cheesy about it. But it's really in essence what they're all doing is taking away what's keeping us from arriving at where we want to arrive.
Yeah. Oh, now I just want to go outside and make some flower essence. And I have Angelica too, although my Angelica didn't do well this year. It kind of struggled because it's like been weird weather. I'm in Maine, so it's like it was really, really rainy, and then it got really hot and dry, and it like as it started to flower, it just got too dry and then kind of like dried out and right away. So it didn't do well this year, but my borage is rocking it in multiple places.
So magical.
So maybe I just am supposed to, you know, interact with borage right now.
Yeah, and I mean, if the Angelica plant is still there, like it really still carries that essence, even if you're not engaging with the flower itself, you know?
Actually, can we just talk about marshmallow a little bit too? Because my marshmallow is also really amazing. And I think herbalists often are always just thinking about the root of the marshmallow plant. And there's so much more to it. And it's such a beautiful plant too. And I saw you had said something about it. So I just wanted to ask you about marshmallow.
I would love to talk about marshmallow. I love her so much. Oh my gosh. Such a beautiful plant. Like, I was so happy. This is my first year growing it in my own garden. And I was so happy when it bloomed. But it carries so much magic. We know that marshmallow is a demulcent, right? In herbalism. Yeah. Like, do I got my herbalism language correct? Yeah. So this unctuousness in the body, right? And it does so in the aura as well. I like to say it's kind of like the, you know, the sac that we're in the womb. We're very protected within that watery fluid of the womb. And marshmallow creates a similar energy around us. It's very much like this divine mother energy, just gentleness, sweetness, like let me take you to my breast and nourish you, you know? But it also really opens up the crown and communication on a spirit to spirit level. I find a lot of times these two things are associated, and I think it's because marshmallow also helps us in times of transition. And I find times of transition, grief, life changes, all these things are very sensitive times. And it seems like the flowers that tend to work in these times also tend to create protection in our energy field, which is really cool. Because really cool. I think we can be very open in these times. We feel very raw, you know? And so there's this protection that occurs. But I love mallow for times of transition, specifically menopause, or other threshold times like Saturn return time, or I don't know, even like maybe a midlife crisis time. Again, because it creates that soothing and that buffering, but it also helps us overcome the programming around aging. I really love this for women, especially because there's so much, and oh my God, it's like so rampant in our society now too. Like so much programming around aging and whatever. I'm not going to give my opinion on it, but I think it could be helpful for all of us to reorient in our relationship around aging and what it means about us and about our value and about our worth as women. So if you're looking for anything like that, mallow is amazing.
I love that. So like if a woman is just struggling with the aging process too, or feeling that societal pressure of wanting to not look like they're aging, like the marshmallow can like help sort of get to the deeper root of that and realize that that's, you know, societal programming.
Yeah. And you know what's so cool is it brings this vitality to our skin. It brings this unctuousness to our body, which is which is anti-aging, right? But
Yeah.
on an energetic level, what it does is it reminds us that we can keep the youthfulness of spirit and deconstruct these ideas that by becoming older, there's something wrong with us, or we're not as worthy anymore, or we're not as valuable, and
Right.
remind us that through aging is how we gain valuable wisdom and become like these true matriarchs of our society who people can come to for insight and advice. And there's just such a beauty in that.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's really interesting how it works on multiple levels.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it does bring the vitality back to our physical, features or whatever, but it brings the vitality back to our spirit by releasing this heavy narrative that there's something bad about getting older?
I love that. Wow. I could just sit here and ask you like each plant all day and hear what you had to say about it. You have such amazing insights.
It's so fun.
It's so fun. I want to do a reading with you now.
Yeah, we'll have to do it for sure.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about the garden that you're building? Because I saw you were building like permaculture garden or anything like that.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I am. My partner and I are building a permaculture garden, and I think it's just really beautiful insight for the way plants work. And I guess what's coming through to say is to just remind people that all your observances of how plants work within nature, work within the garden, how they interact with other plants, like I'm thinking of comfrey and how it's a dynamic accumulator and how it brings the nutrients up from the soil so that the other plants can access them. Look at these things because this is giving you insight to the energetics of the plant. So you have so much
Yeah.
wisdom available to you and trust your intuition. But, comfrey works this similar way in the energy. It helps. It's like a master healer on an energetic level. And as a flower essence, it helps people who really have to go into the deep and darkness. They have to go on these hard journeys, but their purpose is really to bring up the nutrients for the people around them. And they carry so much light and helps remind them of that. So I guess what
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling called to say is there's so much insight around you. And just observing and listening is like such a great place to start if you're feeling called to want to connect to the wisdom of plants. Get out in your garden or get out in your local park. A lot of what started all of this work for me was when I moved to the mountains here, and I would just go and learn every single plant I possibly could around me that I didn't know. And I think something that's maybe a little bit different about my work than a lot of other flower essence practitioners that I see is that I work with a lot of the like little tiny weeds that a lot of people overlook.
Love
And
that.
so go to your local park, get a plant identification app, identify the tiny little weeds, or just sit with them or feel their energy in your hand, or just open up to listen to what they have to say to you. Like this, if you have any interest in learning, it's so available to you and it's so around you, and it's
Yeah.
really just takes presence and just being open and willing, and you will be so well received. Like the plants love to just have attention brought towards how much they have to offer. They're so willing to assist you in your growth.
Mm.
So yeah, I just feel compelled to say, your classroom is right outside your door.
Yes. Absolutely. It absolutely is. Yeah, there's plants everywhere. And there's, so many, like the little weeds are sometimes super magical, like you said. I mean, even dandelion. Dandelion's an amazing plant, and that is everywhere. So get down on the ground and spend some time with
I mean,
somebody.
truly. And I feel like there's they one big thing that I'll share that I feel like has come through from the plants is they're really asking us to kind of deconstruct these boxes that we've put them in.
Yeah.
And a great place to start with that is like going to learn what dandelion has to offer, because dandelion's been placed in such a box,
Mm-hmm.
been demonized, been, all of this wild stuff by the overculture. Like get out there and learn what
Yeah.
dandelion has to offer, and also maybe remember that like what do you have to offer dandelion as well? You
Mm.
know, can you also offer your love and intention and offerings and song and voice and care in return?
Yeah. That's a great point. I know that there's a lot of work with poisonous plant essences now because that's the same kind of idea. Like you take a plant and say, well, this is poisonous. So we write it off as like it is useless to us. And in fact, there's some really potent magical things that that plant has to offer. So that's a great point.
And that's another huge thing is like there's so much fear out there around plants. And this is why I love flower essences so much, because you can work with any plant. You don't even have to pick a plant. You can even work with endangered plants. If you can't pick it, you can just have your bowl of water under the plant. Same thing with poisonous plants. And so it opens up so much to us where we can work with these plants that have been demonized and really sit and listen and hear what they have to say. And often, I mean, they have the most magical medicine, the most incredible teachings to share with us. And yeah, that's what's so cool about flower essences.
Yeah. Yeah. And totally safe. That's the other beautiful thing. Like you were saying, like if you're afraid of plants, like totally safe. There's nothing to be scared of in a flower essence. So that's a really beautiful aspect of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it helps you just recognize how much fear narrative is out there around plants and just kind of begin to dissolve that, because there are our allies, our kin, our ancestors, and that fear really creates a sense of separation.
Yeah, definitely. So Samantha, tell everybody where they can find you and your offerings, because now everyone after listening to this is going to want a reading with you.
I would love to meet anyone. You can find me at thespiralpath.love. That's my website. And then my Instagram is also thespiralpath.love. Easy, consistent. I have my 45-minute flower readings or just 15-minute essence consultations. And those are really magical if you just kind of want to get down to business and create the flower essence that's right for you.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Do you have a couple of retreats coming up, or a retreat? I thought I saw something like that too.
Yeah, so I'll be at Mama Medicine's Element Retreat in Italy in just a few weeks in
Oh my
August.
gosh, amazing.
And a friend of mine here in Asheville who makes elixirs, Rose Rooted, is offering a 2-day campout and community event called Svatinja Sanctuary. That's going to be in Old Fort, North Carolina, if anyone's near Asheville. So that'll be magical. Come out, have all kinds of healing services, and just like connect and make community. I'm going to make a custom flower essence for her community that's all about fellowship and just building that sense of connection. So it'll be really fun.
That sounds awesome. Well, thank you so much. You are awesome. And I don't know, maybe I'll have you back on another time, because I want to ask you so many more questions and so many more plans. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to leave a review. In that review, I would love to hear what topics you'd like to see covered next and which guests you'd love to hear from in future episodes. You can connect with me on Instagram at Original Being Podcast, and be sure to follow, like, and share the podcast on all platforms to help spread the word. Thanks for listening.